welcome. We are here. Greetings. So good to see all of you. There has been some challenges. As you would know, those of you who are, of course, would have been joining me a moment ago on YouTube. We had some issues with that broadcast. As a result, I'm going to seek to stream live from Facebook. But I'm becoming less and less oriented, or inclined, I should say, to deal with these matters in this platform. But I'm here with you all because YouTube was giving me too many issues a moment ago. So welcome and shalom. Blessings to you, saints, and good evening. Thank you, Susan. It's loud and clear. Okay, great. As you can see, I'm streaming here from this platform, and hopefully you'll be willing to invite other persons to this broadcast, and also you'll be willing to share this broadcast with them so they can know them here. I bid you all, the saints, shalom. If you are in Guyana, if you are in the USA or any other part of the world, I bid you shalom. Thank you so much for sharing the broadcast with other people. This is a night that you do not want to miss. It's a night that you do not wish to be ill-informed or misinformed, because this broadcast is going to shine or shed light on a very, very, very critical new dimension, a frontier in Guyana that you do not wish as Guyanese to enter, although you're already there. You do not wish to continue to progress along this road, because this road is certainly going to lead to catastrophic consequences in this country, as you've already begun to see. So I bid you all shalom, and thank you for joining me this evening. While we're here, please remember that thank you so much for sharing, those of you who are doing so already. My broadcast, for some reason, I am normally unable to see your comments in real time recently. I don't know what's happening. Zuckerberg knows. So what I would try to do is to follow you from another device that I have, from my iPad, so that I can try to keep up. So if you see my eyes wandering every so often, it's because I'm trying to see what you're saying. I don't want to ignore you deliberately. Although I said to you before that there's some people who will be ignored, and tonight is no exception. And we're just doing some house cleaning here, as they call it, or housekeeping. Additionally, anyone who enters my broadcast, as they may do, and seek to resort to the most ghetto, disgraceful, profane language, and some of them don't understand what I've just said, cussing, you shall be blocked immediately. You are free to say that I'm fake. You're free to say that I am supporting PPP Civic. You're free to say I'm supporting Apnea FC. You're free to say whatever you want to say. But you're not free to use foul, profane, cussing language on my page. You shall be blocked. I am not here to ask you to say that I'm handsome, to say that I'm nice, to say that I'm intelligent. I could not care less for your compliments. So whether you issue them, I don't mind. But you would not be here being disrespectful to the audience. I have issued that warning, and anyone who seeks to cross that line, I don't care which camp you're from, you shall be blocked, because I'm in neither of your camp politically. So I bid you all shalom, and I thank you for sharing the broadcast. As I said to you, Guyana is, and you can see from the topic, US lobbyists. And this is something that persons are not speaking about extensively. And again, it will highlight to you the hypocrisy of the APNU AFC coalition and their supporters, and the destructive behavior of the PPP Civic. It's that kind of evening. Yes, it is. So since you're here, let's have the conversation, because this sets a precedent that is dangerous for your people, for us as a people. Not for me, but for many Guyanese who think that this is okay. All right. Now, of course, you're aware that Guyana is about to set probably a Guinness Book of World Records record as to the length of time it took for an official declaration to be made for a president to be sworn in to office. I remind you that on the 1st of March 2020, according to Pope Gregory's calendar, I stood before this same platform in fellowship with saints and prophesied to this nation that you shall see in this election, this is where the military would have voted already, the armed forces or disciplined services would have voted, but no civilian would have voted yet. And I said that tomorrow being the 2nd of March, I quote, you shall see, after the voting is done, that which you have never seen in the history of this country, and that which you will never see again in the history of Guyana. That grandparents and parents shall tell their children and grandchildren about the events that unfolded as a result of the election that followed the next day. It is on record. That is another prophecy that I give to this country before anything called counting was done, anything called validation was done. On the 1st of March, Sunday the 1st of March, that prophecy was issued to this country. But of course, persons were not inclined to believe it because many preachers in Guyana tell you don't listen to Nigel London, so you had no clue as to what was coming your way. However, I'm certain by now that you are all well aware as to the events that would unfold. In the months prior to election, shalom to all of you, the People's Progressive Party Civic would have engaged and announced that it would have engaged the services of a lobbying firm called Mercury to aid in their electoral bid. It seemed to me as though what is becoming a painful norm for many people in Guyana, the government of Guyana had no concern about the People's Progressive Party Civic's engagement of a lobbying firm in the United States of America to help them to win an election. The reason I would consider that they would not have been alarmed about this is because they probably do not know what lobbyists are all about. Because I don't think that the president of this country could be informed and advised about the nature of lobbying companies. And he sits back and folds his arm and says, okay, well, if you want to go to a lobbying firm to help you win election, fine, so be it. Let's just party and go along our merry way. What you're seeing in Guyana, and many of you are seeing it across the world in news agencies, is the result of what happens when lobbyists are able to put their foot or their hand into political situations. It is Guyana's political cyanide. Mercury and the other lobbying firm will cause this country, and has already caused this country, to enter into waters that you are unprepared to deal with. And many of your politicians are not telling you about how destructive this is because it works to their benefit. I am not a politician. I have no interest in any of the political parties in Guyana. I have an interest in the saints not being ignorant. And because of that, I can speak to you about lobbyists tonight with absolute freedom of my conscience. But I know that it will be very, very terrifying for politicians once you get information. What Guyana's politicians hate is an informed public. But what they've realized is that many people in the public are undesirous of being informed. There are many Guyanese who prefer to be as ignorant as possible because it suits their stupid agendas. The more ignorant they are, the better they think they are. But for those of you who are being dragged into, and I say it all the time, I'm seeing the people who claim to be saints and who claim to believe and all the rest of it, And you are head and shoulders swimming deeply in this involvement in politics and which party you support and who you want to win and all the rest of it. And you don't seem to be understanding how dangerous your actions are. That you are positioning yourself, probably by Yahweh's will, to be judged among those who are wicked. So let me, and I'll read for you tonight so that you can have understanding. I need to read for you what a lobbying company does. And I think at the beginning of this broadcast, as long as I read for you what lobbyists do, it may frighten some of you to see where Guyana is headed and where Guyana is at this moment. A lobbying group, first of all, in reference to practice, it is typically lawyers who engage in this activity. Stick with me and hear this carefully. Lobbyists are normally lawyers. Why? Let's begin with who they really are, their profession. The general profession that undergirds lobbyists is the legal profession. They are lawyers. Do you understand from looking at Guyana what happens and what is happening based on the activities of legal minds in this country? I will say some things that are extreme in this nature. I know they're extreme, but I'm saying this because I've realized how destructive it is to Guyana. This country would be better served, if you ask me, if we don't have lawyers involved in politics. That's the first thing. Because they're bringing the legal practice, the nature of the legal practice, into the livelihood of persons who are ignorant and unsuspecting of their behavior. Lawyers read the law, and they tried their best as far as they could or can to influence a court to take their side in a matter based on their interpretation or projected interpretation of the law. That's why you need a judge or magistrate. So you need somebody who will be, apparently or supposed to be, unbiased, disinterested in terms of not having any personal interest in a matter, and the person will hear two sides argue in the court, and then they say, okay, then based on that, I am going to rule according to what the judge now is saying is my understanding of your presentation. When you have lawyers, that's why so many politicians are lawyers and so many world leaders are lawyers, because these people are trained to read one thing or have one bit of information before them, or one bit of or one set of matters in their face, and they are able to spin it in different angles with the sole intention of not educating you, the sole intention of not working to benefit you, but to keep them in power over you. That's what politics are all about. Politics is about people having the power to be able to rule you based on what they perceive to be the authority that you give to them. Good evening, Kev. Good to see you there, Heart. Bless you, sis. So when you have got lawyers and legal minds putting their foot in politics, they're the ones who go to Parliament and in reference to Guyana, and they make laws that go to the Senate and the congressmen and so on. And so they're able to, or they know how to speak things that you would never understand, but it impresses you. Now what we have in our country, Guyana, is a president who's not a lawyer, in the person of David Arthur Granger. He's not a lawyer. The PPP Civic, that's why you see them having Anil Nandlal in the forefront. He is an attorney. Good evening. And so what he does is he's able to say things and he knows the audience to which he's speaking. And once he begins to say certain things, what happens is, good night, shalom. Persons who, the audience that they're targeting, see them as geniuses. But they don't have a clue to what the people are saying. Lobbyists are normally from the legal profession. They understand legislation. They understand the power of legislators. They understand who makes the laws. And as long as you have an understanding of who's making the laws and who to target, that's why they target the legislature. They target people who make the laws of a country. In this case, we call them parliamentarians. In America, we call them senators and congressmen and the like. So these people who have got the power to make laws, lobbyists say, okay, we'll target you. And we're targeting you because we're acting as a middleman between a particular group and you. The PPP Civic was the first political party in Guyana to hire a lobbying company in the United States of America to help them to win an election in Guyana. I hope that you follow me carefully so far. You have got a U.S. company being paid to engage U.S. government officials to help a Guyanese political party win an election. And the APNU AFC and its leadership saw nothing wrong with that. So why are you now telling us, APNU AFC, about interference when you facilitated it in the context that you didn't object to it because you felt apparently you have this election one hands down? But why, if you know that Mercury was engaged to help the PPP Civic, Mercury in the US was paid to help the PPP Civic. Barajaglu said, as far as he's concerned, they're doing a great job and nothing was happening yet. And he said, I'm happy with what they're doing. Nothing was happening yet. But he knew exactly what was going to happen based on Mercury's presence in this involvement in this process. So now when you're seeing congressmen and Mike Pompeo and these people speaking about Guyana, and Norway and all these different countries talking about Guyana, it is not because they have an interest in Guyana out of the blue. Somebody, according to the lobbying principle, is speaking to them about Guyana. But we have got a leader in this country who is amazing in the context of what he's doing. Because what he's doing is sitting back and allowing all of these things to just unfold before his eyes, and he's not addressing them consistently and with any degree of potency that accompanies one being the leader of a nation. Additionally, I said this before, but I'd just like to remind you of it. In an unprecedented, absolutely insane move, the President and the Minister of Foreign Affairs recalled ambassadors, 6 of them I think it was, in December, because they had a point to prove to somebody. So when you recall people from different nations just before you enter this electoral process, you now lose influence in all 6 of those nations. It seems as though Shaiza Ishmael does not know what racist means. Can somebody just for this idiot's sake go to the dictionary and post what a racist is, so that this fool called Shaiza Ishmael can understand what a racist means? Because it's typical of PPP supporters. Whenever you say something in politics, and you have a brown complexion and hair like mine, you're called a racist. That is how idiotic these people are. And I'm just establishing my point. So I know the person may not be able to understand what you're saying, but for my sake and for their sake, grab what the word racist means and post it here for me, please. So in case another crony comes here to understand what racist speaks to. So in reference to political engagement, a lobbyist is a group, or lobbyists are a group of persons, listen to this carefully, who work or conduct a campaign to influence members of a legislature to vote according to the group's special interest. Did you hear that? Let me read it for you again. Lobbyists are a group of persons who work or conduct a campaign. PPP Civic, I'm starting with them, then I'll get to UFC. Employed a lobbying firm. Listen to what lobbying firms do. So they're in Guyana. They employed a lobbying firm in the US to help them in election in Guyana. What is Mercury's job as a lobbying firm? Defined in the dictionary and defined by US politicians. A lobbying firm is a group of people who work or conduct a campaign to influence members of a legislature, which would be congressmen and senators, to vote according to the group's special interest. What was PPP Civic's special interest? Winning elections in Guyana. And Mercury was paid to engage US politicians, US leaders, to help the PPP Civic win an election in Guyana. Now, if the government is aware and would have been aware of the APNFC that this was done, why are they now crying about interference? Now let us the regular people in Guyana talk about interference. You don't talk about interference because you know exactly, or you should have known, what lobbying firms do. And you had no issue with it before election started. So why you have a problem now? Next, lobbyists have the purpose, or their sole purpose is to solicit or try to influence the votes of members of a legislative body. These are lawmakers. The other one is more dangerous and most deadly in reference to Mercury's job. And I'll speak to APNUFC's from they hide in a minute. The other definition of a lobbyist or lobbyist would be a group who tries, listen to this carefully please, a group that would try to influence the actions of public officials, especially legislators. I repeat, lobbyist, the next definition, would be a group, again, of legal minds, mainly lawyers, who try to influence the actions of public officials, especially legislators. That is what Guyana, or I should say the APNO-AFC coalition, was up against. Mercury's job was to influence the decision-making of US government officials. Hence, sanction. We're not going to accept any government who is not lawfully elected. We're not going to accept your stealing election. That's the kind of language they want. So let me help you with this further, if I can. In researching lobbyists, I found that in Washington, and some of you in America understand that lobbying is a critical part of your electoral process. Barack Obama was one in 2008 to complain that there needs to be lobbying reform because they were going too far. They are almost buying decision makers. But the same Barack Obama, see, I'm not a pastor, I'm an apostle of the Lord Yeshua. There's a difference, I'm not a pastor. And I know you use the term generally, I don't generalize what the gift that Yahweh gave to me. The same Barack Obama in 2013, when he wanted to have his Affordable Care Act, I think that's what we call it, passed, engaged lobbyists, and almost $500 million would have been invested in that process. Because in the US, the culture is that if you want to win anything and you want to have your way, you pay a firm to get their foot into the legislative body, and they are able, through lobbying, to get things on. Now, let me see if I can simplify it for some of you to understand the difference between a citizen who's a lobbyist and these companies who are employed to do so. You may find, I may be a lobbyist because I've been lobbying for the longest while for Guyana to sit and speak to people. Somebody's trying to reach me, say they're trying to get onto the YouTube broadcast. Just give me 1 second. Right. What happens is that the lobbyists represent the interests in a citizen's matter. Can be a lobbyist in the context that I'm saying, listen, do not repeal this homosexual law business in Ghana, leave it. I'm lobbying to the government here. I'm saying to you as a citizen, this is wrong. I then engage the government through social media. I engage them through protests on the street saying, we don't want you to remove this LGBT business from the law. Leave it. That is lobbying as a private citizen. In this situation, I'm saying, let that which is lawful proceed. I don't want Guyana to have, because my children live here, I don't intend to have any degree of dishonest, wicked, evil people proceeding with what we consider to be this electoral process, where persons are telling you that it doesn't matter what your identity is. If you have one, if you can prove it, it doesn't matter. Let's just, no. I'm saying Guyana needs to follow the law. That's lobbying. But that is not what lobbyists, in the political sense of the word, are paid to do. What lobbyists are paid to do is they're paid to target legislators, those who make the law, those who have the power. And when they target them, look at this carefully. There has to be some benefit. Wake up, Guyana. Wake up, please, wherever you are in the world, if you're Guyanese. The principle of lobbying companies is this. The politicians that they're speaking to, in this case, Mercury engaged congressmen and senators, the politicians they're speaking to must have some known benefit that will come to them at the end of the process. I hope you're awake on that one. There is always an established deal. Give this, and this will happen. Shalom. I hope Guyana is now beginning to realize, based on what I'm saying, what you're dealing with. And why this country is positioned and poised for catastrophe. Because you cannot handle the works of lobbyists. And that is Yahweh's wisdom that's causing exactly what they prophesied to come to pass in a scale that you will not be able to deal with. For example, if the lobbyists want to have casinos established in this country or in the US, they're going to talk to those who make the law about casinos. And they say to them, listen, we want you to pass this law through Congress. Vote yes. Because the casino owners are funding this and they would like for you to vote yes. And if you vote yes, they shall pay or fund your campaign. That's what Barack Obama had an issue because he said, I don't have money. I can't afford to compete with these people. He knew it. So he called for lobbying reform because he couldn't handle the lobbyists. But the people liked him. But if a group of casino owners want to build a casino in the area and say, no, casinos can't be here, they will target lobbyists and say, hey, go and talk to the lawmakers now. Before you know it as a citizen, there's a vote in Congress. Yes, we agree for casinos to be built here. They don't care about you. So that's the other point I wanted to raise for you tonight. Lobbyists do not ever lobby in the interest of the general public. It is not their focus. There's a word that I'll use tonight I'll explain to you. It is called oligarchy or oligarchy. And the oligarchs are people in the elite group of society. That's who lobbyists target. Not you. Not me in their mind. So when a politician engages a lobbying company, it is not because he wants the people to benefit. It's because there's a special group of individuals in Guyana who are called the oligarchy. They must be given the greatest elite treatment and they must have power. They're the ones who engage a lobbying company and say, get us into power. In the US, I told you it could be the casino owners. It could be the hoteliers. It could be let's say some chemical company that they say, no, we're banning this chemical, and they say, you can't ban this chemical, doc. If you ban this chemical, we go to business. And we are a $3 billion company. So go speak to Congress. The lobbyists are paid, they go to Congress, Congress votes to leave it. That's how it works. There is always a benefit that is negotiated for the legislature. For the politicians then. The lobbying company goes to the senators and the politicians and they have to be told what they will get out of this arrangement. So here are some questions for you to consider. What does Guyana have for US congressmen and women to want? Can you tell me? Because it's known publicly. Remember I told you before, our population is extremely small, and we have huge masses of land. But yet, those politicians who love us so much would stick you in a little 80 by 100 or 50 by 80 house lot and think they're doing you a favor. When this country's got so much land. So we have land, but we don't have enough people to live on the land. Now they discover we have oil. And the oil that we have in terms of its quantity, when they count the number of heads in Guyana, people, you would be way too wealthy. Because in their minds, they're thinking it's going to get to the Guyanese people. We have gold and diamond. They call mineral resources. We do not have anything called natural disasters apart from flooding during the rainy season in certain parts of the country. We don't have hurricanes. We don't have earthquakes. We don't have tornadoes. So if anybody wants to find an environment where they can build a home without worrying about disasters, it's here. We do not have any, we have never had a military conflict in this country whereby we had any bombing and all the rest of it. So we deemed a very peaceful nation. Since the 1960s, we have not had any significant uprising in this country, so we also deemed a very docile people. And don't forget that when Guyanese travel or want to go to the US, they go to the embassy and some of you cry and you beg and you plead, oh please, please, please. So they know that you have a desperate heart to get out of your country. They see that based on the fact that you've got 100,000 Guyanese who are citizens of the US, 300 and something thousand Guyanese who are green card holders, we call them, plus so many undocumented Guyanese living outside of Guyana. That's just for the US alone. You've got maybe more than 1 million Guyanese people living out of this country. So they know that you don't want to be in your own country. What do they then do? You have the space to accommodate them. You have got now the oil wealth to accommodate them. But you don't have people with the mind to deal with them the way that Africans would or Middle Eastern people would. So the lobbying firms, I don't know what they were told, but somehow these congressmen have a very great interest in Guyana right now. Because they had to have been told they will be benefiting in some way or the other. That is what lobbyists do. They influence the decision making of legislators. And if your mind is too simple to understand what I'm saying to you, your experience will teach it to you in the not too distant future. So what are lobbyists telling Guyana? Forget about your laws. Let me help you to see how Congress lobbyists function. Lobbyists will tell by the way, the lobbyists will normally tell the congressmen or the politicians that they're speaking to what they should say. Because they're lawyers. So they will write the speech or write the statements for them to say. Congressmen don't care about the law. They care about their position in the future. The lobbyists also offer these congressmen who are lawyers themselves, many of them, a job when they leave Congress. So if you lose the election, don't worry about that. Come and work for us. You can join the lobbying firm. So it's a $3 billion business in the US as I speak to you. Lobbyists can make, one of them who went to jail the other day for corruption in the US, I think it's Abanoff is his name, Abanoff, was making $20 million per year. Not in his lifetime. Every year he was making $20 million just from lobbying. And what did he do? They were able to fly on private jets. Sounds familiar? They could go on yachts. That's what the lobbying company is doing. Telling the congressman, come man, you have free access. You want to fly to Cancun in Mexico? Come on the jet. You want to see this NFL Super Bowl? You've got preferred seating. You don't have to pay. NBA Finals, great, come on. So the lobbyists get these congressmen to enjoy benefits. Afal Razak is the first one, gone. Afzal Razak. Donkeys always have to come for grass. So they're paid and they have benefits that are lavish. The politicians now. So they're lauded. Additionally, the lobbyists who are the lawyers that would speak to the politicians on behalf of whatever group they want to represent, like the pharmaceutical companies and so on, These people know. They know well that whoever they are representing, that the person's been blocked already. That person stands to benefit. Hear the figure, please. If it's a business transaction, let us say it's a casino or a pharmaceutical company, they did a calculation and they calculated that when you engage or you pay a lobbying firm to represent you, you are likely to receive, based on the analysis they've discovered, 22,000% return on your investment. Yes, it's not a mistake. My tongue didn't slip. Any group that pays a lobbying company in the US to represent them, they are generally promised, and it's known that they normally receive in return when the business goes through, as much as 22,000% benefit. That's why so many companies are employing lobbyists to go to Congress, to attack senators, to target them. Because the companies realize that as long as we get to these people and we get Congress to vote in our favor, like the vaccine companies and these people, right? As long as we get them to vote in our favor, business for us skyrockets, because there's no law that prevents us from doing what we're doing. Insurance companies and all of them are targeting lobbyists because they know that as long as we engage lobbyists and they get to Congress for us, they make the laws for us, our companies bloom and our profits increase by up to 22,000%. Do you know what it is for you to spend $1? And out of that $1, you make as much as 22,000% benefit? Treason, the Messiah's name is not Jesus, and you don't have authority to cover anybody under any blood of anything. I know you're speaking because of your desire, but it doesn't work like that. Messiah Yeshua's blood was only handled by him to the Father because he's a high priest. We don't handle the Messiah's blood, and not for companies with wicked people in it or countries. The danger the Guyanese face is this, that they don't understand that the lobbying firms, in this case Mercury, is a US company. And it being a US company means that there's nothing that Guyana government can do to stop them. Now we transition to AFC. There's nothing that you can do because you don't have jurisdiction over Mercury. Get it in your head. There is nothing that the Guyanese government can do to Mercury because you don't have jurisdiction over Mercury. Mercury isn't working on your soil. Which means that Mercury can stretch its tentacles much, much further than you can imagine. Because remember now, our government decided to call some of our officials or dignitaries to Guyana. Because they had the contracts and comings out of the speeches to talk as though she has all this power. And now she's left stuck in a foreign affairs crisis that she can't even think about solving. So the lobbyists now have free reign in certain countries because Guyana has no representative to help them there. Mercury can reach any government official in another country. You don't have to get to the leader. And they tell the official who's in leader's party, listen, there's a country called Guyana here with a lot of oil. These people, they're only 750,000 people. They're quite docile. They don't fight much. So Just make a statement to say that the president must concede. Tell your president to say that first, please. Once you say that, that's it. Norway makes a statement. Afghanistan, whoever it is. Any country can make a statement about Guyana because you don't know how far-reaching Mercury's contact is. Guyana cannot control that. Apnoe government cannot control that. So here I transition to you, Apnoe, in your hypocrisy. You therefore decided, you did not say it was a government level, because the president of Guyana said he had no clue that his own party was going to engage a lobbying firm from the US. That in itself is troubling. Because if you are a president of a country and you don't know that your officials are going to engage government officials from another country, how are you leading Guyana? As long as APNU-AC recognized what Mercury was doing, they decided at some point, they said the supporters did it, to pay some company $75,000 US to lobby for them in Washington. That is called interference. How are you now telling us that you have an issue with US interference if you paid for them to interfere in your affairs? Because you don't like how Mercury's making you look? The moment that you decided to pay a lobbying firm in Washington, you have invited Washington into your country's affairs. So we now have got the government, well, the president says he doesn't have a clue that this lobbying firm was engaged to speak to politicians on his behalf. Those subordinate to him or on his authority said they chose to do it because they didn't like how Guyana was being made to look on the international scene and the image was being painted of us as a people. So you decide to engage officials in Washington, hence Congressman Jeffrey or whoever he is and the other woman who spoke the other day, right? That's how lobbying firms work. They engage these politicians and they go make statements as if they know about Guyana. So what is their benefit? As long as you decide to engage lobbyists, you have just given your politics cyanide. It is dead. Because the company that you paid is in no way able to compete with Mercury. Because, of course, maybe they didn't have enough money to pay as much as PPP did. So you don't have as far reach as Mercury does. That's why only 2 people spoke so far for you. In terms of the US government. Mercury has a lot more money to work with, so they have a lot more people that they can reach. And they make contributions to the campaign and say, we're going to big fund your campaign. A little country like Guyana, who is yet to benefit $1 from $1 of the oil being extracted, is already engaged in lobbying for power. Can you imagine what will happen when our politicians have their fingers on millions upon millions and billions of US dollars from this oil? Can you comprehend what they'll do to you as a people? Because I told you before, lobbying is all about the oligarchies, not about the small man. It's about a special selected group of individuals in a country who want to lead, who want power. So all you think that this government love you all so much and PP love you so much, you learn the lesson later on. They don't lobby for you. They lobby for them to win the election. Only the wise can comprehend what I'm saying tonight. And that's fine. Because I don't worry about fools. Lobbying firms are never engaged for you, the small man. It's for the oligarchy, for those few politicians who believe they have the right to rule you, but they have to have help to get power over you. That is what you're dealing with. And I'm promising you, I may be dead and gone, but you remember this conversation, you remember this presentation. You are unable to, as a little country who has no understanding of how severe and savage these politicians can be and these lobbying companies can be, because Mercury is not a Guyanese-based firm. They don't care if your country descends into chaos and rioting. It doesn't bother them. They've been paid. So when you want to get on your stupid horse, and some of you cronies on this page, or you're willing to die for this one, you're willing to fight for this one, you're willing to die for that one, remember there's a company in the US who does not care if you die or you live. Just understand that. They've been paid already. They did their job. They finished. Now you fight and kill each other. Mercury has been paid. Their job is to get the people Pacific in office. If they get into office, you don't know what else they've been offered and what else they'll benefit from. And can you imagine, I ask you again, what Guyana will look like when politicians, policymakers they call themselves, have the power to touch your oil money and engage even greater lobbying firms? Some of you are too crazy behind politics to even understand what I'm telling you. But I promise you, you or your children shall understand exactly what I said tonight. Shalom, Mama Megan, good to see you. Guyana, your only hope is repentance. And I talk about your Jesus church nonsense that you are behave with and run around the place and holler. Repentance speaks to your mind being changed. If your mind is still on the European garbage and following after these European nonsense, you're going to still be in the same position. Because you can see it. And I don't make apologies for what I say to you. You cannot follow a lie and think that you've repented in the truth. Only Yahweh's grace and His mercy could rescue this nation. Because your politicians have already engaged in cyanide usage. That's what lobbying is about. Lobbyists will destroy your whole country. They don't care. So they're telling the politicians in the US to tell your president, leave the office. Don't care about whether votes are valid or invalid. Just get out. Submit. Or else. That's the lobbyists at work. Because they're lawyers. You want me to give another trick? Let me help you with this. If you pay careful attention, you are hearing a term that is subtle because they're lawyers. So they're saying 115,000 votes have been invalidated. Maya Motley, or Mia, whatever his or her name is, 115,000 votes have been invalidated. It sounds simple to you because some of you do not understand the legality behind this speech because they're lawyers behind this. Let me help you with the trick in this. They are not saying 115,000 voters have been disenfranchised. They said 115,000 votes have been invalidated. Do you hear a difference? 115,000 votes have been discarded. Mayamati did not say that 115,000 voters were disenfranchised. Do you know why? Because she knows that she cannot prove that 115,000 people can be accounted for in that number. So you just talk about votes, not voters. Subtle difference, but lobbyists are lawyers. They know exactly how to work language. Ideally, they all know that for every vote, there has to be only one voter. But if you take the voter out of the equation and you say, listen, you can't discard 100,000, 115,000 votes, you can't do that. It's unfair. But they cannot tell you that for 150,000 votes, there are 150,000 voters. That's when you have what is called reconciliation. One vote, one voter. So the territory that you've entered into is a most destructive one. And while politicians on one side want to play nice and appear to be nice and try to play the nice boy stroke, there's another side who's saying, let's just get on with business. Whatever happens to Guyana afterwards doesn't matter to us. We, the oligarchy, have the power. The few of us who want to be in power get power. That's the end of the matter. I close by presenting to you what would be the most extreme aspect of this discourse. And that is, of course, it's my view, which I have a right to share with you because I understand in reference to fairness and justice how Yahweh works. Romans 13 speaks to honoring authority because they're vested with power to crush you. The constitution of this land is the authority of the land. It governs the affairs of the land. As a Guyanese, as a man who has children who will grow up in this country more than likely, it is my humble submission to you as a people. I'm lobbying here in the context of a citizen, not a lawyer who's a businessman. Anyone who is allowed to bring the country to this state by lobbying should be charged for treason across the board. APNU, CPPP, whoever you are, you should be charged for treason if you are prepared to bring your country to this state just to get power. You have committed treason in my book. Anyone who's going to, and it's actually, read the law books carefully. If you're going to be a Guyanese and you engage a US or whoever citizen to do things in the interest that is destructive to your country, but it's your interest, but it's destructive to your country, it's treasonous, if you ask me. It is added to what I said to you before. Any human being in this country who is guilty of electoral fraud, be it Mingo, be it Jagdio, well, the president, he's immune to prosecution. Whoever you are, Lowenfield, Claudia Singh, whoever you are, any human being in this nation of Guyana who is guilty of electoral fraud should be put to death by execution of a firing squad, because that's treasonous. That's what I'm lobbying for. Because we have to stop this now. This is going too far now. This is going way too far here. And if you're all serious about the benefit about your children, you'll not be afraid to call out your politicians. I don't care what your name is. If you're going to be involved in fraudulent behavior in this country, you should be put to death in reference to election. Because It's obvious that somebody had to do certain things to get us to where we are right now. And whoever you are or whoever they are, they should not be treated with any degree of care and concern for their well-being. They should be tried in a court for treason and they should be put to death. What amazes me is that all of you loving cronies can't say what I've said. You political puppets who say that I'm for apnea, I'm for this and I'm for that. You can't say that, but your party's so honest, but you still can't say it. But I'm saying it right here. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a minister in the government. I don't care where you are. If you are an individual in this country and your hands have been put into electoral fraud, you do not deserve to live. You should be tried in the court of law, and I need them to go to parliament and make it law that electoral fraud is equivalent to treason. You must be put to death. Secondly, they must go to parliament and they should agree in parliament that anybody in this country who engages a foreign entity to interfere in the affairs of this country, you should be tried for treason. How many of you who love your politicians so much can say what I'm saying? Because at some point I'm telling you that Yahweh hates wickedness. The scripture says that Yahweh hates wickedness. Yahweh is angry at the wicked every day, not once a day. Every day. It records further that Yahweh has instruments of cruelty to deal with wicked people. And I'm asking, that the legislators of Guyana, who would form the 12th Parliament, will go and make a law or laws to that effect. This election should have taught you a lesson. If you want to put our country in this position, you are guilty of treason. Taupa, good evening to you. If you want to be Guyanese and engage some foreign entity to interfere in our political business, you are guilty of treason because you've betrayed your country. That's how you know when you love your country. When you don't take sides, when you walk a straight line, a line called righteousness, a line called being upright and principled. And the sad reality is that you've not seen the end of Mercury's work. You've not seen the end of any other lobbying firm's work because you don't know how far they're willing to go. Shalom the rest. Our country is suffering severely at the hand of the oligarchy. Again, a few people who feel they have so much power that they could do what they want, engage who they want, pay who they want, and just bring your country down to nothing, then they have power. While the uninformed society is fighting for APNU AFC, PPP Civic, they don't understand that this has taken on an entirely new face. You are now in a position of international interference through the work of a company. See, somebody said jail not that soon. Why must my taxpayer money feed any criminal, especially politicians? Amanda, it costs $400,000+ per year to take care of one prisoner in this country. Why must I already spend tax money Whenever I buy something or you pay VAT or whatever it is, you pay politicians. So why must you pay to keep them in prison too? Some of you think that my mind is hard. No, I serve a Heavenly Father who's worse than me in reference to his seriousness. He doesn't play. T.T. Ronan is gone. Blocked. Not on my page. So I hope, therefore, that in this brief moment with you, you were able to, or you are able to be better informed as to what this conversation about lobbying and lobbying is involved. It's not just about somebody helping you as in campaign management. It goes beyond that. And that is why the U.S. is now going to make statements repeatedly, because both parties paid for U.S. politicians to talk about Guyana. And Sean James is asking a question. I know that you question things I'm on side. Of course. Ministers who are dual citizens should not be in Parliament. They should be out. And the PPP Civic had them too. People don't respect our laws and they want to be held in high, lofty positions in this country. They should be put out of it. But the people in this country have a problem. It makes no sense for you to fight for politicians who are hypocritical in their conduct. My final plea to you Guyanese people is for you to please, if you can, the free-minded Guyanese, expose and ridicule, rebuke those who seek to drag you on social media into this race-baiting nonsense, because that is exactly what the politicians thrive on. Politics is about dividing a people so that you can have authority over people. I repeat, politics is about dividing a people so that you can have authority over people. Stop being pawns in a game. Lucky Lex, good to see you. Never late. That's okay. When the battle is over, I promise you, these people who made you fight and fight will come and say, well, it's time for us to build a new Guyana. And it's time for us to unite the country and for the country to move forward. And they'll act as though they've never engaged foreign entities to destroy their own people by lobbying. But not this time. As long as I'm breathing, I will call you out for your hypocrisy. Not this time. There'll be no handshake and smiling here when you've already done all the damage to us as a people. Stop fighting for people in the oligarchy, meaning the top bracket of society, who think they're so rich that they don't need little fry around the place. Stop. Chow Pao correct. It seems as though Mercury is rich and the other lobbying firm is in the Caribbean as well, because CARICOM is important. You don't know how far they've gone. You have no clue as to how far they've reached in their influence, because they've been paid to go as far as they have to go for power to be given to a particular group of people. They don't mind what it takes. And if you ask me, if it were the PPP Civic, APNU AFC, whatever you are, Guyana should not be in CARICOM. And the next broadcast I do, hopefully Yahweh willing, I will tell you why. Or if you have a minute, I can tell you why right now, before I leave you. We can have a vote. I'm afraid to use that word. If you want me to tell you right now why Guyana should not be in CARICOM, vote. This one will be valid, by the way. I'll only count what's valid. Yes or no. It won't take me 5 minutes to tell you that. And there's nothing to do with APNU AFC or PP Civic. Either one. Even if the PP Civic is in power, I will say the same thing. Guyana should not be in CARICOM. The 12th Parliament of this country should vote to leave CARICOM. Whether it's PPP in charge or APNU AFC in charge. I don't care who it is, because none of you have to govern my well-being. You don't take care of me to that extent. I'm sustained by the grace of Yahweh. So don't come down the road with me. You're voting already? Uh-oh. See, I couldn't even see. Go ahead. Okay, great. Why should Guyana leave CARICOM? The person's blocked already. Okay. All right, I get it. Okay, the yeses have won. The yeses have won. Consider your future. Some people don't hear me clearly for some reason. I'm not speaking. I don't belong to any political party. PPP cronies, you don't hear that. So I'm talking to you. If you're from PPP Civic, but you're not a crony, you just vote for the party, fine, I could talk to you. If you're from APNU AFC, I could talk to you. Why should, if PPP has won the election and they put in office, they should leave CARICOM. The country should leave CARICOM, not PPP Civic, not APNU AFC. Guyana should leave CARICOM, not PPP Civic, not APNU AFC. Guyana should leave CARICOM. And I'll tell you why. When Guyana, or should Guyana, settle politically, and if Guyana, which is highly unlikely, but if Guyana manages to unite socially, so we don't fight anymore, all this is settled. As long by 2025, 2027, 2030, Yahweh willing, should the money from the oil begin to manifest itself in our society and hit where it should, and if by any means, it's almost impossible by now, but if the government is able to have our money in the US federal bank brought to our bank, where it should have been in the first place, but of course because Guyana, whoever it is, they can't do certain things, they're under pressure. This country is going to have such significant wealth that Guyana shall become the backbone of the Caribbean economy. Therefore, the country, at this very moment, is the only country in CARICOM, because Trinidad has made a mess of their oil industry. So they're done with. That's why they're asking to refine our oil and all kinds of foolishness, because they're finished. The degree of wealth that this country has hanging over its head, you do not need CARICOM. CARICOM shall become a liability, the nations of CARICOM, to our development. Because what they want to do is to hold us as they're doing now, with all of this political jabbering and yapping, because they have no economic power any longer over this country. Leave. And I promise you that the day any strong leader in this country say, you know what, since you want us to interfere in our business, we live in CARICOM. You see how quickly they begin to say, no, we have a long history and we're supposed to be united, and because they cannot handle the thought that you are now independent and you're wealthy enough to not need them. But that's only if you have politicians who have our interests at heart. These don't have it, period. A united Guyana does not need CARICOM. You will never need CARICOM if East Indian, Afro-Guyanese, Portuguese, Chino-Guyanese, and all you Amerindian Guyanese, all y'all, if we are united as a people, I don't have to be a friend to be united with you. But we all understand that we're going to work in the interest of our country and our children. We don't need CARICOM. Brazil is right there close to us. Brazil is a wealthy nation. Brazil doesn't fight Guyana. Brazil has some of the largest manufacturing industries in this continent. What do you do with CARICOM? What does CARICOM manufacture to your benefit? We're part of UNICEF. That's maybe the movement you're talking about. Leave. A united Guyana will never need CARICOM. Never. And I'll take you further. Guyana does not even need CSEC, Caribbean Examination, Secondary Examination Council. Forget it. We will have our internal examination because we are wealthy enough to take care of our citizens. The Bahamas is smaller than Guyana and they do not write CSEC. They write GCSE or whatever they call it. And BGCSE. BJC, they do not deal with CARICOM. When you are wealthy enough, you do not need their examination to prosper because you will be taking care of your people. If the politicians have a mind for you and not for power, then they're going to do things that benefit you. You don't need CSEC. Because our Guyanese children will be taken care of by our country. Guyanese, you don't understand. The US ambassador says something, and that should have been a warning sign for all of you. That Guyana doesn't understand as a people how much wealth you have in terms of oil. She said it. She said you can't wrap your mind around how much wealth every Guyanese can have. Our politicians don't believe her because they want it for themselves, apparently. Leave. Begin to teach our children the language of our neighbors. So that generation will grow into being able to interact with them and do business with them. You cross borders, you build roads because you have the money now. Build roads to Brazil. Suriname is right there. Build a bridge to Suriname. Let's do business. Because you now have the economic power. When you open it, the road to Suriname, you have French Guyana, you have all the way to Holland, and you go through that area. What are you doing in the Caribbean? CARICOM for what? For sun, sand, and sea? That's where we pay to go for vacation if we want to. They have nothing to offer us. But their opinion in our electoral processes and our internal affairs. CARICOM cannot defend Guyana in any conflict. If Venezuela wants to fight us, can CARICOM defend us? Which one of them get an army? Some of them don't even have 20,000 people or 50,000 citizens and they want to talk to Guyana. About what? If Venezuela seeks to engage us in a military conflict, Brazil is the only neighbor we have that's capable of dealing with Venezuela right now. So what are you dealing with CARICOM for? Because what? These people told me to my face, some of y'all don't travel enough, I tell you so you don't hear certain things. I live to hear it. They told me to my face that the only thing that makes you Caribbean is your language. And they love me, and my Amati could talk to me about CARICOM. They told me that to my face, as a Guyanese male, who's more qualified than half of them, or maybe all of them. The only thing that makes you're not a Caribbean person, only your language has you with us. That sounds like love to you. Leave. Focus on uniting Guyana. CARICOM is a waste of time because you're going to carry an economic load for CARICOM. Play, you'll see. Leave. Now I've given you the reason. CSEC out the window. It's useless when your country begins to flourish financially, because you will need to go to work in the country. So we want CSEC for. Have an internal examination, drive our economy by what surrounds us. Teach our children agriculture. Teach them about the oil industry. Teach them about renewable energy. Teach them about manufacturing. Let them go to Brazil and learn about manufacturing and assembly. Bring it here, because we can build a road right through, let them and go to Brazil. Shift your focus on this Caribbean nonsense, because they don't like you. Now I thank you for your time, and I hope and pray that you now have a better understanding. Somebody say, thank you, Little and Lambert. Even the churches in Caribbean, and I've been a part of that too. A preacher told me to my face. A preacher, no, not a heathen. A preacher told me to my face in the Caribbean, I don't like foreigners. No, not a heathen, not a drunk man, not a drug addict. A preacher, again, told me, while I was living outside of Guyana, to my face, I don't like foreigners. And you telling me about CARICOM? And they have an interest in Guyana's well-being? Get lost. Goodbye and shalom. Thank you so much, Daddy. Thank you, and I appreciate your blessings. Do well. Yes, he did say that. Amaya, you sure you remember one of them said it? I think the one from Barbados. Do well, saints. See you all soon by Yahweh's grace. You Lex and others, thank you so much. Bless you, sis and brother. Bye-bye. Goodbye. I appreciate your sentiment. Thank you so much. Goodbye.